开始了。OK 啊，2、3，等一下。这个基本。OK。
Lights, camera, action.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Udish, and I'm a global black belt as part of the Cybersecurity Solutions Group within Microsoft. I'm based in Australia, and I look after the Asia region.
Hi everyone, my name is Terence, and I'm a devices specialist as part of the global black belt team for Microsoft Asia as well. I'm based out of Singapore, and really happy here today to share with you a little bit about our security strategies.
Thank you, Terence, and I'm going to call you in a bit. So let's have a look at some of the things that we've been doing as part of Microsoft threat protection story. I'm going to cover off the solution stack that we have across Office, Windows, and Azure. Before we jump into some of the solutions that we have, let's take a step back and look at some of the challenges that our customers see on their day-to-day operations. As you can see, an average organization has roughly around 70 different products from 35 different security vendors. So that's, when you think about it, that's a lot of products that you need to manage from day-to-day operations, and that creates more challenge for various organizations. If you look at the other statistic, around 1.87 million cybersecurity workforce shortage by 2022, that's also going to create a lot of challenges for our customers in the future. So again, there are other statistics which I'm not going to go through. This essentially adds a lot of challenges for not only for customers but also for end users when they do their day-to-day operations. As part of Microsoft, we see some of these challenges internally as well, and we feel the customers, what they have to go through in day-to-day operations. The threat landscape is evolving, and as the threat landscape evolves, it creates more, it opens up to various different attacks, from script kiddies to people who usually look at to gain financial gain across various organizations. And these attacks are getting sophisticated every day. Again, the digital transformation stage that we are in today is evolving, and it creates, it opens up different avenues, and for attackers to create various new attack vectors, and essentially the attack surface get bigger and bigger. Integrated intelligence is going to be the key for us going forward, but having said that, when you have multiple point solutions, which we spoke about earlier, how can you correlate all that information and to give you enough visibility? That adds complexity, and that adds confusion within security operation. So how can Microsoft help our customers? Before we jump into some of the other areas, let's have a quick look at Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph. I'm pretty sure you have seen some of these statistics before, but I'm going to reiterate some of these things. One thing I forgot to mention was that if this session is an open session, please feel free to ask any questions. So in YouTube, if you have any questions, please feel free to post any. So going back to Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph, there are a lot of numbers in here. I'm not going to go into each of them, but when you look at 400 billion emails being analyzed every month, that's a big number. And 450 monthly authentications being done from Azure, that's again quite a big number. So what does all these mean for our customers? What this means is that we collect all this intelligence from our internal Microsoft and also from our customers and our partners, from all the devices that we have deployed across the globe, and collate all this information and give you visibility and give you intelligence to find new ways to stop attacks. And essentially give you intelligence so that you can consume it across when you use our Microsoft products. I'm going to refer to Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph throughout my presentation, so just as FYI. In last year, September, in Orlando, Florida, we announced our Microsoft Threat Protection Strategy, which is part of our Ignite for 2018. As part of Microsoft Threat Protection, we pivoted into key areas, starting from identity, endpoints, user data, cloud applications, and also infrastructure. So today we are going to cover some of the key components what you see here. Again, I'd like to highlight some of the key challenges that we see with customers when you have multiple point solutions deployed across your network. How can you identify some of these? How can you find a needle in a haystack quickly and get the valid information for security operations to validate the threat and put their effort and resources? When you have multiple point solutions, as you can see here on the screen, that creates a big challenge on day-to-day operations. That's where Microsoft Threat Protection Strategy comes in, from identity, endpoint, user data, cloud applications, and infrastructure. That essentially optimize security and with minimal complexity. I'm sure you guys, you have all seen the attack kill stage. When we resonate that with Office, Windows Defender, and Azure ATP, I want to highlight some of the key pieces that we have across our solution stack. As you can see here, when an email lands on your machine, it goes to machine learning models and AI that's built into Office ATP. And there are other key components also built into our Office ATP, which I will cover through in a bit. And depending on the attack, it may land on your machine. And there are various steps that Windows Defender ATP takes to mitigate the risk. And if there happen to be any lateral movement using identity compromise attacks, then that's where Azure ATP will come in and help organizations to identify that attack. I'm going to come back to this slide later on to give you more visibility once we went through our solution. So let's look at Office 365 Advanced Threat Protection. Office 365 ATP has industry-leading protection, actionable insights, automated response capabilities that we've introduced very recently, and also training and awareness for users and for IT. If we pivot into industry-leading protection, what we have, what do I mean by industry-leading protection? Let's look at some of the key pieces that we have as part of our Office. From a spoofing point of view, there's DMARC, DKIM, obviously that's been built in as part of the solution, and then impersonation, the protection layer that's built to stop impersonation type attacks. Then content analysis and detonation, that's again being introduced as part of the Office ATP deployment. Let's look at anti-spoofing. Spoofing is when a sender tries to hide themselves and appear to be someone else, or the originate of the email could be from someone else. There's a common way. This is a common way that attackers try to gain access into an organization or target a specific user. As part of Office ATP, machine learning is applied to anti-spoofing to give you correct visibility and to identify the threat vectors. Impersonation attacks are again part of our Office ATP solution stack. It's as part of impersonation, there are multiple solutions that's been introduced. Sorry. There's anti-impersonation and also mailbox intelligence. Then the last part is content analysis and definition. With this, there are key features that we have as part of Office ATP, from safe attachments to dynamic delivery, document preview, safe link, and URL definition. So we not only cover the inbound and outbound emails, we also cover, from protection point of view, your files in SharePoint online, and OneDrive, and Teams, where you store your files or any links shared between your end users. So Office Advanced Threat Protection integrates with all of these key features to give you end-to-end capability. All right, let's have a look at some of the actionable intelligence that we have as part of Office ATP. Some of the key features that we offer for security operations and also to security administrators are all the dashboards that we provide as part of the solution. Why I mean actionable intelligence? Because you can pivot into any of these dashboards and take action against some of the statistics that you see here. I will cover some of these things during my demo. And again, recreating some of the actionable intelligence. This is a phishing, this is anti-phishing insight feature that we have as part of Office ATP. And as an administrator or as the security operations person, you can pivot into any of these areas to get visibility across what's happening in your tenant. The real-time reports also provide you visibility on what's going on in real time. This can be if your SEC operations is investigating a certain campaign that they have found from another organization or from a user or from a security bulletin. They can get visibility across their tenant using real-time reports that is available as part of Office ATP. As I mentioned previously, we introduced Office ATP automated incident response. This feature we introduced at the beginning of the year for across all the tenants to work with our customers. And I have an example here what it would look like and what detail that it provides to security operations. As you can see here, this is an incident page. And as part of the incident, there are 23 emails being investigated as part of this alert. And it has gone through a number of steps to identify all these threats as part of that campaign. And also it has identified how many machines that emails being landed on, and how many users that's been attacked. And as a security operations person, you can pivot into any of these areas to get more visibility. With that, I'm going to do a quick demo just to give you visibility. Right, let me quickly refresh the screen just to make sure that I still have an active connection. All right. So what I told you about the insights that you get as part of the solution, this is going to be this is one of the main dashboards that you get as part of the threat management or as part of Office ATP. So from here, you can pivot into any of the areas that you wish. Obviously, this dashboard can be configurable as to your organizational needs. So then, as a security operation or from administrator, they know exactly which information that they want to pivot into. The Threat Explorer will give you additional information, real-time information, so then you can identify any campaigns, target users, and so forth. From here, you can identify whether there are what type of phishing emails that's being targeted, or if there happen to be any malware that's being targeted any of your end users across your tenant. As part of user education and awareness, you can create various simulation attacks, which you can target your end users across the organization. So that way, when they see a bad email coming into the landing on their machine, because no one can provide 100% protection, if there happen to be a bad email landing on their machine, then they know what steps that they need to go through. With that, I'm going to invite my colleague Terrence to go through Windows security.
All right, thank you so much, Udish. Hi, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, very good morning. So in the next 20 to 30 minutes, what I'd like to do is to share with you a little bit about the Windows 10 security landscape, as well as a little bit about the security features that's been built right into the platform to make it really expensive for the bad guys to penetrate onto your endpoints. So this brings me to this slide over here, right? So earlier you heard from Udish about how the threat landscape has changed over the past. In the past it was about script kiddies. Moving forward, today attackers have become so much more sophisticated, become more advanced. Right, so it's hard for us to say that today, any organization is 100% safe from any kind of attacks, right? So if you think about this, in the past, where the security strategy was circling around like your endpoint, antivirus solutions, your firewalls, and so on and so forth. But today, right, given all the sophistication of attacks that comes in, all the bad guys, what they try to do is to try to penetrate them through the weakest link. So what is the weakest link today, you might ask, right? So, typically I would say that, given the weakest link today, they are usually at your user's level. So in this picture here, very interestingly, you will see that, hey, there's a human error. Right, this is actually Dave in the corner over here. So Dave, right, he could be someone in the organization. He could have easily clicked onto a malicious URL. This actually creates some kind of intrusion point for the attackers to enter the endpoints. Right, so what can then we do to make it really, really hard for the bad guys to come in even at the endpoint level? So earlier we talked about this protect, detect, response strategy. Over here is a quick summary of the Windows 10 defense stack. So if you guys haven't moved to Windows 10 yet, I hope that after today's session, right, this will give you hopefully some insights as to why you should be moving to Windows 10. Right, this list here is of course not all the features. I'm just going to quickly pick out one or two of the features today to show to you. And later, right after this, we'll talk a little bit about what this post-breach feature, where every Windows 10 endpoint is also a kind of a sensor. It's actually an intelligent endpoint that makes it able to collect data logs to help you to make insights as to whether you have been potentially been compromised or not. Right, so one of the interesting things about Windows 10 today is the feature what we call Windows as a Service. Right, so what is Windows as a Service? Windows as a Service is a feature that allows us to actually stay up to date. Right, you can think of it also as a security feature as well. Right, the world we used to live in, but Windows was typically updated every, I would say, maybe 3 or even 5 years for many of the customers that I work with. From XP, maybe moving to Vista to 7 and so on and so forth. Right, that's about 3 to 5 years gap. With security being a cat and mouse game today, right? So the adversaries are actually innovating every single day. And in the past, with Windows being updated only every 3 to 5 years, this created what we call this protection gap. So the bad guys could find a way to, find exploits. They try to stay ahead of the game. With Windows 10, right, what is actually happening is every 6 months, we have the new security features as well as even the innovative features that comes with Windows 10. And this helps to close this protection gap. So today, what I'd like to do is to share with you some of the features that has been kind of built across Windows 10. Over the past 3 years, I would say that Windows 10 has been in the market, and how we have actually leveraged on some of these features to stay ahead of the game as well. Right, so one of the interesting features in the past, right, 30 years ago, I think when we hear a lot of BIOS, right, BIOS is actually a feature that actually runs when you first turn on the PC. So what happens when you press the power button on your endpoint or your device? Right, typically what happens is that when you press the button, there'll be a set of firmware that runs, some of the option ROMs here that gets loaded before Windows loads. Right, so over the past few years, attackers have tried to find ways to leverage on these factors, right, to try to write malicious code to run even before Windows loads. And that happens, that becomes really disastrous, right? Because even you have Windows loaded, all your malware has really kind of executed, it's hard to kind of detect and destroy that. So then, right, since Windows 8 days, we actually built in what we call the UEFI or UFI, right? So it stands for Unified Extensible Firmware Interface. This actually creates a level of trust to say that, at the firmware level, when the moment you turn on the device, we are able to trust this ROMs that runs. We have a certain way to prove the trust before Windows loads. And also, very recently, with new devices, it comes with what we call the Trusted Platform Module or TPM chips. This creates an additional route of trust as well. And this is really important concept to Windows 10 because this actually creates this baseline level of trust, from the moment you turn on the device all the way to Windows loads. And then we have the new features in Windows 10, what we call the virtualization-based security, which we'll talk about later today, and how this all beefs up these hardening features into your endpoint devices themselves. Right, interesting, right? Let's talk about one of the common, I would say, pain points that I actually heard from many customers, and that's actually with passwords. So what's the problem with passwords? Passwords today, they are very easily, hacked and very easily phished, right? People use social engineering to try to trick their users to give their passwords away. And what's very, very ironic that I've heard recently is that many actually organizations, they enforce, because they want to increase security, they enforce a lot of security features, requirements into passwords. They can say that, hey, as a user in the company, you will need to change your password, every 3, maybe 4 or 5 months. And then to make it worse, it makes it hard because you're not allowed to reuse password histories as well. So you end up with very complex passwords that people need to remember. But of course, people don't remember passwords. What they didn't do, right? They end up writing passwords onto the sticky notes and then paste it under their keyboard. But I find that that's kind of funny because it actually reduces security, right, instead. So then what do we think about passwords today? So today with some of our modern devices, so over here I have a Surface Book, right, that belongs to Udish. Right, so over here I'm going to lock the device. So assuming now I'm trying to authenticate to the device, right? So I'm trying to authenticate to this device using biometrics, using my face, using facial recognition. And you can see that it's not going to work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Udish, of course this is his computer, to show you how he authenticates very easily. So all he needs to do, as you can see, is just look in front of the computer, smile, and then swipe up the screen, and voila, he has logged into his device. So this is actually one of the most favorite features I've seen, right, with replacing passwords using a Windows Hello feature. And in Windows Hello for Business, we are also able to couple this with an organization to allow users to use their biometric features or PIN to authenticate to their Active Directory or Azure AD environment. And also, we have done some work around with FIDO alliances to allow us to integrate Windows Hello authentications into applications as well. And this is a much easier and a much more secure way to do authentication into devices and into services. Right, so next up. One of the threat vectors that we have seen, right, is that with users going onto the browsers online, using internet, surfing the web, people end up going to sometimes what we call malicious websites. And some of the attackers out there try to use spear phishing attacks to create very lifelike experiences that people will believe is a real site, but actually it is a malicious site. So leveraging on what we call the Microsoft Smart Screen feature, right, I'm able to show you a quick demo right now on how this works. We are able to use some kind of reputation to kind of see if a website that a user tries to go to, whether is it a real website, is it a phishing page, is it a malware exploit. So over here, right, I'm going to show you what happens when a user tries to go into a phishing page. So over here, as you can see, once a user tries to enter a website, a malicious URL, that once we check the reputation of the link, it's not great, we are able to provide a report to the user and a warning to the user to say, hey, you know what? This is something that you might not want to do, right? So this actually adds a layer of security to the browser itself. So talking about the browser, right, I think I want to show you guys something really interesting, right? So we have seen how this smart screen feature works, and recently we also have what we call the new exploit guard feature that is able to integrate a level of network protection, and this feature, smart screen, is tightly integrated with that as well, right? So you have seen a demo earlier. Now I want to show you guys, another example. So I'm not sure if any of you guys have heard of this Strontium attack, right? So I'm just going to quickly give you an overview and show you a demo how that kind of works today. So this is like typically, I would say, an attacker's kill chain. The attackers try to enter an organization through the weakest link as usual. We talk about the users or the device. So what happens is, in this case here with the Strontium attack, right, the attacker attacks a user through a phishing, typically through an email. It tries to let the user click on the URL, go to a website, and then runs an exploit on the device, right? And then eventually once that happens, what he will want to do is once he enters the first endpoint, he will want to stay under the radar and try to eventually expand across the network, right, through typically what we call like maybe pass the hash or golden ticket attacks, which I'll talk about more earlier later as well. And then of course eventually endgame, like boom, right, endgame. This is where some of the biggest problems that we all don't want to enter is, maybe they steal information, they try to, maybe leverage on ransomware or stuff like that, and they try to destroy whatever assets you might have, and so on and so forth. So in this case here, this is actually a scenario that happened with NATO, right? So this is a fierce phishing email that the user actually received, and he was actually tricked to click on this URL. So what happened is, this actually happened really fast. When the user clicks on the URL, right, it lands on the exploit page, as you can see over here, and in less than 1 second, right, the exploit is going to run in the back end. And of course, as an attacker, he wants to kind of create the impression that the user would not actually know that he actually clicked on the URL, is that he will actually eventually redirect the user to the intended page, so it looks legitimate, right? So in less than a second, this exploit runs. So I'm going to quickly share with you a little bit of a demo of how that kind of works, but let's actually explore a little bit about the traditional platform stack and how this actually wasn't great. So if you look at this over here, right, this is our traditional, I would say, platform stack. And this is, in the past, we have the device hardware, right? And then this sits on top of the kernel, and then we have the platform and application layer. So what happens in the past is that when someone kind of penetrates the application layer, right, they can actually very easily break into the rest of the stack as well, and that's not great. So one of the interesting features, right, that we built into Windows 10 is what we call the VBS, virtualization-based security, right? So this is really, really interesting, right? We are able to leverage on the new hardware features today, right, with Intel VTD, some of these extensions that actually come with the newest devices that you purchase, and we are able to leverage on Windows 10 Enterprise to actually create this virtualization base. What we actually do is we can spin up like a small little black box, a small little virtualization environment, and we can start to isolate stuff that is important, right, to actually put them into this small black box. So one of that, right, we're going to talk about right now is at the application layer. We are able to do that at the application layer such that, let's say if you run the Microsoft Edge browser, we are able to actually create this environment that is separate from the rest of your operating system. So I'm going to quickly show you a quick demo of how this kind of works. All right, so as you can see over here, this is actually a demo that I want to quickly show you. Okay, so I'm going to play this demo here. Can you guys see the screen? Okay. Let me just make sure I can play the video. Okay, so in this video, right, you will notice that, sorry, let me just make sure I can show you guys. Okay, you can see that we have the anti-malware solutions already running. Okay. Sorry, let me do that again. Can you guys see this moving? It's not moving, huh? Okay, anyway, so in this case here, what I would like to show you guys is we have actually a URL that's a spear phishing URL. Right? You can see the URL, it says blogs.windowsz.com. The moment when the user clicks on the URL, right, in less than a second, the exploit ran, and you saw that earlier when the firewall and anti-malware solutions were running, now it's able to just turn it off. Right? So you can see that the website actually goes to blogs.windows.com already. So earlier, the user got tricked, goes to windowsz.com, which was actually the spear phishing URL, and in less than a second, right, we are able to run the attack and actually kind of turn off the anti-malware solution. So likewise now in Windows 10, we are running Application Guard. Similarly, you see that this browser has a red color, this logo on the right top left corner. It shows the Application Guard is running. This actually browser session is virtualized, and you notice that now it doesn't affect the anti-malware solutions at all. Right? This could be any anti-malware solutions, and this was just an example to show you how powerful today an exploit can run in less than a second. Okay, next up, I would like to show you guys this feature where we talk about Credential Guard. So earlier you heard from Anil, right, in his session as well, that how typically when attackers, as part of their queue chain, once they enter the endpoint, they want to find a way to laterally cross the network and expand across the network. So Credential Guard, similarly, leveraging on what we call the virtualization-based security, we are able to now actually take some of the important things like your password hashes and put them into the small black box we talked about earlier. So pass the hash is typically how it works, right, in case you haven't heard of it before, is that, right, so once the attacker enters one endpoint, right, they're able to actually what we call harvest some of the tokens and mine these tokens. So typically what happens is the NTLM hashes that's running in the local security authority, LSA, right? If you use a tool such as Mimikatz, right? Mimikatz is actually a free weaponized pass the hash tool that you can just download off the internet today. We are able to mine these tokens and eventually replay them across the network. So from one endpoint, right, from, let's say, for example, earlier if Dave were the one to click on that URL, right, the attacker could actually run maybe say Mimikatz, harvest that token, and eventually replay that across the network, across the domain, until he finds what he wants to find and enter maybe a higher administrative privilege kind of device. And that's actually going to cause a lot of trouble for the endpoint. So this is Credential Guard, right? Okay, so this is an example. On the right-hand side is Windows 10, on the left-hand side is Windows 7. Windows 10 running with Credential Guard, Windows 7 is not. So in this case here, you can see Mimikatz is being run, right? So using this command, what happens is the end user is going to run Mimikatz, and you see what's going to happen. Right, very easily, once he clicks on this Mimikatz, he can actually harvest all the recently used usernames, some of the tokens or the passwords, even though they might be hashed, as you can see over here, right? You can see all the recently used username, BradMCC, all the NTL hashes, and all these hashes can easily be replayed across the network. Right. On this time around, on the right-hand side, with Windows 10 running on Credential Guard, right, we talked about how we put some of these secrets into the black box. So now, the attackers can no longer so easily read off some of these credentials. So you're going to see in this quick demo here, likewise, I'm going to put in the same command as Mimikatz. You can see that now password source as now, NULL over here. Right, so all these password hashes has now been put into this black box container, making it really, really hard for the bad guys to just read them off easily. Right, let's talk about ransomware. So this is actually some kind of case that happened very much like in the past few months. So ransomware kind of was a very heated, I would say, topic, right, I think about the past year. So we talked about Windows 10 being a, with a servicing model today being also a security feature itself. So with the, what we call the 1709 feature, where Windows 10 was released 2017 September, right, the build version itself, or what we call the For Creators update, right, we actually had a new feature that came as part of the servicing model in the feature update that provided some kind of defense against ransomware. So interestingly, right, you see this case over here, we talk about how the attackers have become so much more interesting and sophisticated. So, right, the bad guys are always trying to find ways to try to break into your endpoints. or they will try to find ways to make money by breaching an organization. So rather than ransomware, which we're also used to, right, to just attack your endpoints, encrypting your files and asking you for money, these attackers here did something really different. Right, they actually said, hey, you know what? Hotel chains, today your doors that you use in your hotels today are using key cards, they're digital key cards, right? So why not we can also run a ransomware on all these doors, these digital door locks, and lock them out, lock the guests out, and then ask the hotel owner for money. So this is exactly what happens, right? So you can see that the attackers today are finding very creative ways to stay ahead of the game. So ransomware became a very hot topic about a year ago with the 1709 version. We actually launched a feature called the Control Folder Access as part of Exploit Guard. And what it actually allows us to do is to say as follows, hey, you know what? As part of the Windows Defender Security Center that controls this feature, Control Folder Access can actually identify some of the folders, right, that might be really important, right? So for example, it could be your OneDrive for business, it could be your finance documents, and so on and so forth. We are able to create a smart application whitelisting within this feature. And we are able to say any kind of applications that are not trusted, that haven't passed a level of trust, will not be able to make any kind of authorization, changes, or deletion or encryption to any of these folders that you actually define. Right, so Control Folder Access actually helps you to manage ransomware and design really to slow them down. Right, and of course we talked about the new servicing model as part of the 1803 version that was GA, general availability was made in 2018 March. We also launched some new features as part of this as well. So we're able to say, hey, we can actually run some protection at this sector level, and there are additional configurations that you can run to protect all these folders that are important to you. Right, so in the interest of time, actually, I can't go into a lot of other very cool features, right? We had some other features that you can even say, hey, only allow me to run trusted applications and so on and so forth. So today what we have actually touched upon is really some of the features around the pre-breach into every Windows 10 endpoint to make it really expensive for the bad guys to break into any of them. And then right now, what I'd like to share with you is, I want to actually bring in Udish again. We talked about Windows Defender ATP, how now Windows 10 is also a smart sensor. Every single Windows 10 is like a flight recorder, digital collecting data, and then making sense of that, right? We are going to talk about the detection and response strategy right now. So we'd then like to invite Udish back on stage.
Thank you very much, Terence. All right, let's deep dive into Windows Defender ATP. So, as Terence mentioned, there are a lot of protection stack built into the operating system already, and what I'm going to talk about is the added layer as part of the EDR component, which is Windows Defender ATP. Again, there's no additional agent that you need to deploy. I just want to make sure that everyone understands what our solution stack get installed, or how our solution stack get installed on your machines. There's no additional agent. The service is already built into the operating system. So that's one of our key value propositions to our customers, that you don't have to maintain on-prem infrastructure or to deploy an agent. Without further ado, let's have a look. So what Terence spoke about was just purely from attack surface reduction, next generation protection. The pieces revolves around that. What I'm going to focus today is on endpoint detection and response, automated investigation and remediation, the security posture, and some of the advanced hunting features that we've introduced. So when you think about it, this is some of the capabilities that we had for the last couple of years when we introduced Windows Defender ATP going back about 2 years ago. Today, as I mentioned, the service runs agentless. There's no requirement for you to deploy an agent onto your machines. Unparalleled optics, which means that we spoke about the Microsoft Intelligent Security Graph earlier. The signals that we collect from various parts of Microsoft get all fed into Windows here, or Windows ATP, which means that all the telemetry that we collect, all that information gets fed in here. So we have best interest to identify any attacks as soon after we see it or detect it. Threat hunting, I briefly spoke about threat hunting capability, which I will talk about in a little bit more detail very shortly. That's already built in to Windows Defender ATP. Automation. We acquired a company called Hexadite roughly about 12 months ago or so. And that's been integrated into Windows Defender ATP to give fully automated capability on Windows Defender ATP. Security posture is part of our security management capability that's built into Windows Defender ATP to give you visibility in terms of what things that you need to do in additional to improve your security across your tenant. Flexibility through APIs, essentially to give you, if you need to collect your logs, or if you need to sync up with other parts, other solutions across the network, there's flexibility that's with built-in APIs. Let's have a look at automated investigation. So previously I spoke about automated investigation as part of Office ATP. But this is the Windows Defender ATP automated feature, which is, the interface looks very much similar. And as you can see here, this is an alert that's been identified as part of the automated investigation process. And as you can see, there's all this information is being provided to you to give for your SOC analyst to identify the threat and go through all these steps to take action. What you see here, the pending action history, is that essentially as part of the automated investigation process, you can make it fully automated or semi-automated. Semi-automated essentially means that in the last couple of steps, you need someone to authorize the action. If you select as part of the policy to do full automated process, which means that it'll go, the solution that we have as part of Hexadite, it'll mimic a security analyst and go through the steps. What would a security analyst do on in an incident? And there are multiple playbooks that built into our solution. Essentially, it will mimic all those playbooks depending on the attack, depending on how severe, depending on the severity of the attack. I will go a little bit more deep dive into automated investigation throughout my demo. I also spoke about advanced hunting. Advanced hunting is essentially an option that's built into Windows Defender ATP for security hunters or for SOC personnel within the organization to pivot into various components or to identify certain files or certain processes or a certain attack vector across your tenant. If there happen to be a campaign that hit your organization, you can use advanced hunting tools that's already built into your solution as part of Windows Defender ATP to identify that threat. As you can see here, there are all these different techniques that already been created. And we use what we call the Custo language that's part of Windows Defender ATP to write all these queries. I'm sure most of you use GitHub to collect and to identify some of the security information and to share your knowledge and to see what others are sharing throughout the community. We constantly update our advanced hunting features and the various queries that we have created internally, and also customers get to update their own queries, which means that you don't necessarily have to write your queries all the time. There could be someone within the community have already created a certain query that you can utilize within your tenant. Let's look at an example of an incident. So incident can have multiple alerts. So as you can see in this example, there are multiple alerts being created, and across actually one machine, it's being correlated into a single incident to give visibility for the security person or the security analyst. I will go deep dive into an example in my demo. This is one of the core features that we've introduced about 12 months ago on threat analytics. So threat analytics is essentially give you visibility on some of the campaigns that we see on global scale. Some of the new, if there happen to be a new non-patriot type attack were to happen, then this will get updated to give you visibility for your security operations and your security admins, what that threat does, and the distribution across the globe, and how you can reduce how you can minimize the risk within your organization. Also, it will give you visibility in how many machines within your network that have been infected with that relevant threat. Also give you the steps that you can take to minimize the risk across your network. And if there happen to be, if your security admin or security analyst happen to read some sort of a new threat in a blog, you can come and search here to see what's our recommendation, if there happen to be, or what steps that you can take within your organization. We also introduced the integration as part of Windows Defender ATP to information protection. Information protection is our threat protection strategy we introduced as part of Ignite 2018. And as you can see here, in the Windows Defender Security Center console, there's the risk level being highlighted as high and it's being pointed as red. What that means is, as part of information protection, there's some sensitive information being triggered on this particular machine that's been flagged by information protection policies that's been created. Which means that whenever there is a document or some sort of a office file that's been classified as sensitive, and there happen to be some sort of an issue on that machine, that will get highlighted in the Windows Defender Security Center. So whenever the analyst goes through this process of identifying what's going on within the network, they'll get prompted that this is a sensitive machine. You have to be take extra precaution. Similarly, information protection, Windows Defender ATP integrates with Microsoft Cloud Application Security. So I know my colleague Anil will go through some of these things in a separate session to give you more information in terms of the integration and in terms of how the solution works. But I'd like to highlight the integration between Cloud Application Security and Windows Defender ATP, which means that you don't necessarily have to deploy an agent onto your machine. It can leverage Windows Defender ATP service to communicate with Microsoft Cloud Application Security. I was at RSA conference a couple of weeks ago in San Francisco. There we announced Microsoft Threat Experts. So this is a brand new service that we announced for our customers as part of Windows Defender ATP. So what do you get as part of this service? Threat Experts provides special insights across what's happening across what's happening on your tenant, to give you visibility, and also to provide all these different features that comes as part of the service, from threat monitoring to proactive notification, and also on demand. You can reach out to our hunters, or human-based hunters that are dedicated for this service. So I briefly spoke about target attack notification and experts on demand. So this is the part of the service that you're going to get as part of the managed hunting service that we announced as part of RSA. All right, let's have a quick look at a demo on Windows Defender ATP. All right, so let me refresh the screen so I can get the most accurate information. So this is the main dashboard. What you see here is the Windows Defense Security Center. In the main dashboard, you can pivot into various areas as you need. You can customize some of the areas that you want to visit on a regular basis. But what we see here is the security operations dashboard, and if I'm the analyst, I can see there's a lot of activity happening in my network, and I can pivot into the areas that I need straight away, depending on the areas that I'm interested in. What I can see here, there's some automated investigation activity currently underway, and there's one active incident sort of underway. We will pivot into that very shortly. Also, I can see there are 5 high severity events currently underway. So I'm more keen on that, and I can go into the incidents tab here and click on that to get more information. As you can see, there's all the high severity incidents that's been highlighted in red, but there are some newly created alerts being highlighted here as well. If you go into the machine list view, you can see what machines being infected or what machines being targeted and the activities around that. Again, please note that this is a demo tenant. This is not actual customer data that we're using. This is purely a demo tenant to show our capability to our customers and partners. So over here, I can see there are, this is the automated investigation process. And I can see in the action center, this number 2 has been highlighted, essentially, which means that there are 2 pending actions that waiting for the security person or the security ops person to come and look at and then approve it. So I can see here, there are 2 actions in here, so I can pivot into the first one, and there is some sort of file that's been quarantined, and it came from this machine, and it happened a couple of hours ago. And there's some information in here, but I'm not really sure. As an analyst, I'm not really sure what step I need to take. So what I can do is I can pivot into this. I can go into the machine timeline. Still loading. Now I'm in the machine timeline, which that alert's being generated from. So I can see here that there is some activity that's been identified on this machine. As an analyst, I can filter through all these activities to identify what steps I need to take. But as you remember, this is being highlighted as part of automated investigation, which means I can take action directly on the automated investigation process, which means that it actually essentially cuts down the process or the involvement that an analyst has to go through to identify these threats, because we have done all the heavy lifting for you. What you see here is the partial automated investigation. If I have selected fully automated investigation as part of the process, which means that this activity, I wouldn't even see any of this activity because it was all withheld for me. Because as I mentioned, we have multiple playbooks that's been built into the solution, and it essentially mimics an analyst going through each of these steps. So let's go to the automated investigation process to identify what's going on. As you can see, there's on the status it says pending approval. If I click on that, it should give me an indication of what's going on with this threat. As you can see, there's there's over 3,000 files being scanned, and 2 malicious files being identified, and 2 threats being identified, and there's 39 different log files, 2 alerts, 1 machine. This is the investigation graph, so you can pivot into any area that you wish. And the total time, the time is still counting. It has taken over 1 hour or 1 hour 45. But if you look here, it's been waiting for me to approve this file for 1 hour 44 minutes. If you do the math, it has taken a little over a minute to identify this file within your network and classify this as a bad file. So it's waiting for me to approve this file to take the next action. So that is essentially our Windows Defender Security Center, and that's part of the demo that I want to highlight. Let's pivot back to the presentation. All right. As the next solution stack, we're going to talk about Azure ATP. Azure ATP is designed to identify any identity-based attacks which spans across Azure Active Directory. We introduced this solution roughly about 12 months ago, and it's an iteration of the ATA solution that most of our customers and partners are very familiar with. Azure ATP it's designed to identify threats, and it's focused on what is important from attackers' timeline point of view. And it reduces the fatigue from where attackers the security operations have to go through to identify where some of these attacks being originated, and to identify where some of these attacks moved across the network. And again, this gets powered by the intelligent security graph, which I spoke about earlier. So if I put Azure ATP into a timeline from attack kill chain point of view, it goes through different stages to identify an attack, to identify a user, and go through the attack, and to steal credentials, and then move laterally across the network, and to gain domain dominance. So this is essentially what a typical attack would look like, and again, mapped into some of the areas that we have typically seen with our customers, and also out from global scale. And if we expand that, if we sort of expand this into an example, what you see here is attack timeline from day 1 all the way up to day 243. Without deep diving into this example in sort of high-level terms, what you see here is that an attacker is targeting a certain user in an organization where there's no MFA or multi-factor authentication being enabled. Most likely, the attacker must have used like password spray type attack to identify to gain access into this particular user. And once the attacker gained access to 1 or 2 users within the organization, attacker did a scan across Office 365 to gain administrator level access. And as number 3, it creates a exfiltration rules to extract all the data essentially from your organization out to another server where attacker can gain access. And also, as number 4, as you can see, attacker had created a VPN connection so then the attacker can dial in as a legitimate user whenever he or she wants. Then that way, the attacker can easily move across the network without being detected. So with that, let's have a look at an example how Azure ATP actually functions in sort of real time in a sort of real scenario. So this alert being highlighted as part of the Azure ATP console. Jeff is a user in this organization. There are 6 open alerts being flagged for Jeff. And as you can see, the risk score is very high. And there's a lot of information about Jeff here, and more information about some of the activities that Jeff is involved in. And over here in the open alert section, there are all these alerts about Jeff and about his identity activity. If we have a look at some of the activities from the bottom, there's leaked credentials being identified. So Azure Active Directory being identified that these credentials being leaked, and also Azure ATP identified has flagged this activity. If also on the second scenario, there's risky signing to unfamiliar signing properties, meaning that Jeff most likely has either tried to sign in from an unfamiliar location using impossible travel. I believe Anil spoke about conditional access previously, to how we identify some of the protection layers, and in terms of identifying the connected scenario, if there happen to be a risky behavior from an untrusted device, how we detect that activity. So this is essentially that. Then we will have a look at some of the suspicious VPN activity that attacker may have created to move laterally within the organization. When you click on that VPN activity, we can pivot into an area where we can find a little bit more information. Jeff connected, so there's more information about Jeff's activity in here, what machine that he used, and the location that he typically connected in versus the location that he actually connected in. So the locations are very different from the frequent location that he typically connect into the network. So with that, we can clearly see that Jeff's identity has been stolen, and the SecOps can take necessary steps to identify the next activity. So in summary, we spoke about our protection stack, which spans across Office, Windows, and Azure. And I spoke about the attack kill chain, which spans across the entire stack. I just want to re-emphasize some of how critical it is for us to know how our solution stack works across the attack kill chain, from email landing on a machine, being identified by Windows Defender ATP, and from Azure ATP, the attack, I'm going to open up this slide. From Azure ATP, the lateral movement, and if there happen to be any data exfiltration to a cloud application, which Anil will cover in a session later on for cloud application security, So this is essentially our end-to-end kill chain that we have across Microsoft. Again, in summary, Microsoft Protection can give you all the solution stack with optimal security, with minimal complexity across your network, from identity, endpoint, user data, cloud applications, and also infrastructure. So, as the next step, as key takeaways, why Microsoft? Why would you want to look at Microsoft? One of the key reasons that I like to highlight is that as Microsoft, we have domain dominance. We have domain knowledge. We understand what activities that is happening across the network. There's no one else better than Microsoft to give you that visibility and give you that knowledge back to our customers to identify these threats across your tenant. And we are investing very, very heavily in R&D effort. We invest over $1 billion every year on our security to create better security products to our customers and our partners. And as the next step, I would highly, highly encourage everyone to engage with the local team and engage with the local technical team and start testing some of the solutions that we spoke about. You can easily start a proof of concept, and we are here to help. If there's any questions in YouTube channel especially, please feel free to post any. Otherwise, thank you very much.